the Ionian node, the Lydian node, the Dorian node, and so on and so forth. So if I'm on the Ionian node and I'm in the key of C, now I don't have to be in the key of C if I write everything in a relative position, which I'm advocating for here. But if you use normal convention, you can't. You have to call it basically a C major. So C major means we're going to be on the C note, and then we're going to go a major distance up to the last note in it, in essence, meaning the last note is going to be the fifth that we go up, or you can say it's a triad and we take every other note for the normal major. Now, what I would like to do is to say that we're going to call it just something without the C, but a relative point. So I can call it an Ionian C 2 modal half step, meaning the distance to the last note is 2 modal whole steps up, I should say. And that, though, means that the C is still redundant. I'd like to get rid of the C. I'd like to say, hey, look, we're in the collection of notes around the C major, and then just call it an Ionian 2 modal whole step chord. And that'll give me the point I'm on and 2 modal whole steps up, so that I can easily transpose this through all 12 collections of 7 notes. If you write that way, the transposing is easy. Okay, and then you could just call it a 3-note Ionian chord, meaning just take every other note. If the Ionian is the tonic, then I could capitalize the I and make it a capital I2, meaning the standard convention could be, I'm going to tell you, like with the Nashville number system, the collection of notes based on the Ionian node, the major, even if I'm playing with some other thing as the tonic, like the Dorian node, so that you have a convention so that you can easily find the correct crayon box that we are in. And then you can tell what the tonic is by capitalizing it, so that you don't have to say that. You could just show it within the song by saying the one with a capital is the tonic. So I think that's a useful tool. And we could say it's you can also name it by range. It's a 1-5 modal range chord, meaning you start on the 1 Nashville number system, take every other note till you get 3 of them, you get end off at the 5. So it's a 1-5 modal range chord, or you can call it then an IX modal range chord, which would be the Ionian to Mixolydian modal range chord. Now, from a color standpoint, we're building the color off of the Ionian node. The Ionian is yellow-green. So this yellow-green color, it looks like almost just a normal spreadsheet color, but it's actually the color of the chord, is what we can name it by. We could say this is the yellow-green chord. This is the light or grade 3, light grade 3 for a 3-note chord, yellow-green chord, right? And we could say, you know, the 1-5 modal range chord is the light or third shade of lightness yellow-green chord. Okay, so that's, and then over here we have then the distance. So the distance are the nodes now. So how do I build a C major or a 3-note Ionian chord? Well, it's a 1-3-5, or from a color standpoint, naming the nodal points, the Ionian is yellow-green, the Phrygian is sky blue, and the Mixolydian is magenta. So it's the yellow-green, sky blue, magenta chord, right? And then these up top are giving us the shades of gray for the half steps. Would be 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. That gets a little thrown off up here because the shades of gray aren't going up octaves. So that's going to be that idea. And so let's bring it down to the rest of them, then we'll go back. So what if we have a 4-note chord? Normally you'd have to name it by the note name, which in our case is going to be C. So we would have to say it's a C major 7. But the C doesn't tell me, once again, if it's an Ionian chord or a Lydian chord or a Mixolydian chord, really, or maybe it's not a Mixolydian chord because it has a major 7, but it's still kind of confusing. It would be better to remove the C and say it by node. So it would be a 4-note Ionian chord, meaning take every other note until you get 4 of them, or an Ionian C3, but the C would be redundant. I'd rather just call it an Ionian 3 modal whole step chord. Start on the Ionian, go 3 modal whole steps to get to the end point, and then take every other note on the way. We can name it by color, though, by saying it's the yellow-green chord, right? It's the yellow-green chord for fourth shade of lightness, yellow green chord, or right. And that's going to tell you that it's going to be an Ionian. It's building off of the Ionian because the Ionian is the yellow-green node. If we look at the nodal points, then it's going to be a 1, 3, 5, 7 from a Nashville number system, or an Ionian, Phrygian, Mixolydian, Locrian. So that means the colors that we're going to be adding, if we just say it by color, the 4-note Ionian chord is yellow-green, sky blue, Mixolydian, Locrian. From a modal range standpoint, it's an Ionian Locrian chord, or the endpoints are yellow-green to yellow, right? An IN chord. So then we can say, well, what if we had a 5-note chord? Well, that's going to be one shade of green darker. So it's the 5 shade of darkness Ionian chord is what we could basically name it. If we named it conventionally, we'd have to name it by note, C major 9. But that's not specific to where we are on the fretboard in terms of, are we talking an Ionian or are we talking a Mixolydian or Lydian, possibly not a Mixolydian, but in any case. Then I'd rather call it a 5-note Ionian chord, or an Ionian C4 modal half-step chord, or just an Ionian 4 chord. And if I did that, I'm giving it a color now based on the node, which is yellow-green. So the yellow-green, from a chord standpoint, is telling us it's an Ionian chord, and we're going to say it's 5 degrees of darkness, meaning it's a 5 note, it's a 5 shade, 5 yellow-green chord, right? It's because it's got 5 notes in it. So then what are going to be, so that's going to add then to it this 2, and the 2 is the Dorian, which is spring green. So the modal range is a 2-1 modal range chord, or an ID modal range chord, which is, from a color system, the yellow-green to the spring-green modal range chord. So it's a yellow-green, spring-green modal range chord. All right, what if we add another one? So if we add the 11, it would be a C major 11, but I'd like to drop the C. So to drop the C, I can call it a 6-note Ionian, or an Ionian C5 modal whole step chord, but the C is redundant. I'd rather just call it an Ionian 5 modal whole step chord, which could be then the node color, which is yellow-green. So it's a yellow-green 6 shades of darkness, yellow-green 6 shade of darkness chord, which means the 6 stands for how many notes are going to be in it. Maybe we should do it by whole steps. 5 shades of darkness. I don't have my naming convention for the darkness perfect right now, but you get the idea. Play with it. So then I'm going to say it's going to be a 1-4 modal range chord, 1-4 modal range, or an IY modal range chord, meaning it's going to be going from the Ionian to the Lydian, which is a yellow-green blue modal range chord. And then if I had another one, then a 13, it would be a C major 13, but I'd like to drop the C and name it by the node, so it would be a 7-note Ionian chord, or an Ionian C6, but the C is redundant if I know the collection of notes, so an Ionian 6 modal whole step chord, which would be 6 times 2, or 12 modal half steps, which would be 13 scale degree, which would end us on a 6, which is Aeolian. So from a modal range, it would be an IA modal range chord, or from a color modal range system, it would be yellow, green, red modal range chord. Okay, so if we look at the note half steps, so what are the note half steps? Well, if I go 0 notes up, then if I go 0 modal whole half steps up, it would be 1 scale degree. Then we would have the 0 here, which would be flame, a distance of flame in notes. If I go 2 modal half steps up, it would be 3 scale degrees, which would be 4, and that's going to be the mint. If I go 4, and let's look at it this way. Let's pull this out here. So distance-wise, now we're looking at distance numbers instead of point numbers. So if I go 4 up, that would be a 4-note away major third, which is mint, or it can be a 4-note away from the Ionian node to modal half steps, which again is mint, all because they're all going the same distance of 4. If I go 4 modal half steps up, it would be the 5th scale degree, which would be 7 notes up, which we can define as azur. So we can call that whatever you want to call it. We can call it a 7-note up perfect fifth. It's still Azure because it's 7 notes up. We can call it a 7-note up from the Ionian node 4 modal half steps. It's still Azure because it's 7 notes up. So if we say we go a 6 modal half steps, which is the 7th scale degree, it's going to be 11 notes up, which is punch. So punch is an 11 note away major 7, still going to call it punch, or you can call it 11 note away from the Ionian node 6 modal half steps, still going to call it punch. If we go 8 modal half steps up, 9 scale degree, then it's going to be 2 notes up, or 2 plus 12 notes up if we take that into consideration. But the local distance will be 2 notes away major 2nd, or major 9 if we take the octave into consideration, and or a 2-note up Ionian 8 modal half step. If we go 10 modal half steps up, 11 scale degree, it would be 5 notes up, which is aqua. So we can call that a 5-note away perfect fourth. You can say it's 4 plus 7, which would be 11, right? And there would be a 5-note away from the Ionian 10 modal half steps. If we go 9 modal half steps up, it would be 12 modal half steps up, 13th scale degree. Then it would be 9 notes up, which is going to be orchid. So 9 note away major 6 will be orchid, or you can say it's going to be 9 plus 7, 9, 10, 11, 12, 30, 6 plus 7, which is 13. And then it's a 9-note away Ionian 12 modal half step. Now, if we look at the note names, we're looking at the key of C. So now these colors are based on the points, which are the key of C, which actually line up to the nodal points in this case, because we made the color system for the nodal points and the chords based off of the C major scale. But it'll be different when we get down here, because we're using 2 different color systems, one by point of note point, and 2, the one that I think is actually more useful oftentimes, by point of relative position, similar to the Nashville number system. So this is going to be the colors built based on the note points. Okay, so then what bucket are we in? These are the majors. They all land in the bucket of the major, just like we would expect. That's the cleanest one we're going to see.